Hey y'all, it's been 1 year since I planted my grocery row garden inspired by David the Good's book, Grocery Row Gardening. Today, I want to give you a walkthrough of that system and show you what it looks like 1 year later.
All right, y'all, let's take a tour of the grocery row garden. It's been exactly 1 year since we planted the system. I just went through and did a full chop and drop or slash and stash where I cut back basically all the plants, anything that was dead, anything that was overgrown, cut it back, chopped it up, fed it back to the soil, added some amendments, and I just topped everything off with some fresh compost. So that's the black soil you see on all 3 rows there. So let's go ahead and take a tour. We've pulled down our vines for the season. Gonna grow some new loofahs over these trellises here. Let's start to name some of the plants that we see here. So we see our powder puff caliandra, nitrogen fixing tree. I just really lifted the skirt on that tree right there so it can start to become more of that tall canopy. And actually, that's something I wanted to say in this system right here. I did the grocery row garden system based on David the Good's book. And I'm starting to learn about something called syntropic agroforestry, which is really trying to grow your own fertilizer. So something I'm adding to the system now is a bunch of nitrogen fixing trees. And while you see this little seedling here, it looks tiny. This is called interlobium, also called monkey ear or ear pod tree. It has those black ear pod looking little seeds that fall down all over the sidewalks. For many people, this is an invasive tree. I'm gonna really steward this tree so that it can fix nitrogen, it can grow up and become a canopy layer over my fruit trees, and I can also use it as a really fast chop and drop. So around all of my target species, I've planted a bunch of chop and drop species like this moringa right here. So here we've got the Tropic Beauty Peach, which already has some peaches on it right now in mid-February. But I'm really gonna start growing this canopy that gets that top emergent sunlight that actually goes over these fruit trees. I know that's kind of awkward with my hand, but I think you understand what I'm saying. There's gonna be a layer of trees up here. Here's a perfect example. Papayas are an emergent species, and you'll see underneath the papaya right here, I've got this little Pickering mango trying to fruit right now. Definitely not going to let that fruit, but love the panicles. Probably let that grow up at least another year before I let it hold fruit. But since it's such a young tree, I've got this emergent canopy that kind of filters some of the harsh Florida sunlight, and I'm going to end up doing that for all of my target fruit tree species that I have here. So let's keep walking through and I'll show you what we see. Lots of pigeon peas that I planted from seed last year. Just got a 50-cent bag from Latin Market and threw the gandules pigeon peas in. They're growing up, great chop and drop, nitrogen fixer, and of course the edible beans on there. The peaches and plums are going off. This is the Florida Prince. Like I said, Tropic Beauty over there, Florida Prince right here. You can see all the flowers. It's looking beautiful. And there's already some young peaches growing on this tree as well. So really excited about those. Gotta love the volunteer tomatoes that grow out of the compost. Always a blessing. Just like this volunteer papaya out of compost. That's the best part of using compost, right? So chopped everything back here. We still got peppers in the system. Still have the Anna and Dorset apples right here, about 12 feet apart. And we'll see how they do. If they produce apples, we'll keep them. If they don't produce, we'll probably exchange those for something a little more subtropical. So my goodness, this plant right here, the Cuban oregano, if you want something that grows like a absolute weed with no input, this is the plant for you. I just warn you that you're going to be fighting this thing back. You cannot eat enough of it, but it's a great low input plant to have here in Florida. You can see I've chopped it back heavily, and I actually took out all the cuttings. I'm letting them air dry over here basically in my yard, and I'm just letting those get roasted in the sun until they die, and then I'm going to compost them, because if you compost them fresh, you're going to have a lot of new plants growing out of your compost. Another one of our caliandra powder puff trees, nitrogen fixer. As I said, next to our target species, like right here, we have our Scarlet Beauty Plum. I'm starting to plant a lot of these nitrogen fixers, and that's going to grow up and be that top emergent canopy where I can basically grow my own biomass fertilizer right here in place. The objective is to eventually grow all of my own fertilizer. Instead of having to input the chips and the compost, I'll be able to just chop and drop and have sufficient nutrients for the system. So we got our African blue basil here, absolute must have for the pollinators and the bees. I also throw this in my smoothies in the morning to give it a nice little like licorice taste. It's really tasty. We got katuk that we just cut back. You can see here this trellis. Last year we had tons of loofahs on it, but we cleaned that up, and I'm definitely going to plant some more loofahs. One of my favorite plants that I grew last year. Right here we have our gold nugget loquat. And even though this tree is only a year old, I'm letting it go to fruit because I actually want the seeds. Loquat are a great fruit that's pretty true to seeds, so I actually want to plant these out and start some new plants from this. And of course, I'm going to eat those as well. Going through, we've got our ice cream bean tree. I'm going to air layer this branch right here. That's going to be my first air layer. Going to start that this season. I'll let you know how it goes. Over here, we have the M4 mango. You can see right here that it's also throwing some panicles, and I'm not going to let that one fruit either. It's a little too small, and I actually just fertilized that with palm fertilizer. So I know it's got the panicles right now, but I'm going to strip those, and I'm really going to encourage the leafy growth to become a big tree. I just started backfilling this system with more edibles. So here's a little banana here. This is the Manzano apple banana. For me, it's the most delicious banana I've tasted. I still have a lot more varieties to taste. I've got about 10 here, but last year we got a rack off this apple banana, and it was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best tasting bananas we've ever had. So I took a cutting from it and started a new plant. So as we move on, we've got our Red Lady papayas, which is the overstory right here for our Brogdon avocado. And then next to that, we've got another ice cream bean tree. And again, we've got these pigeon peas all over. I've cut back things like our edible leaf hibiscus, and I actually propagated that to start some new plants that I can spread around the yard. Over here, we have our Turk's Cap hibiscus. This plant absolutely went off this year. I probably ate 100 of the Turk's Cap flowers. Was a really great edible hibiscus in the system. Right here, I've got a chocolate pudding fruit that I bought from Echo, the Echo's farm, and I ate the chocolate pudding fruit, planted the seeds, and I've got a bunch of plants. So I threw this in here, and hey, if it takes off, great. And from what I understand, the chocolate pudding fruit, the black sapote, is relatively true to seed. So, and I think 3 to 5 years on that. So really excited to throw that in the system. I've got a Nishikawa avocado. We'll see how this thing does. I've already had to remove one avocado from the system right over here. It was the Super Haas. And as soon as I moved it and planted it into a pot, it started coming back to life. So I don't know if it was nematodes or the moisture in the soil, but I had to remove that one. This Nishikawa, we'll see how it does. I have Winter Mexican and a Mexico Legrand that I just bought. So if this one doesn't do good, it may be getting replaced. And then over here, we have the Venti Kohal banana. From what I understand, it's one of the fastest growing bananas in the world. And really, this is more so used for me as a biomass chop and drop. But of course, I'd be happy to get some bananas off it as well. And I just introduced that into the system. And also, over here, I think I walked by it. Okay, this is a sugar apple. And this is a seed that I got from a friend off of Instagram, actually. And I planted the seeds, they sprouted, and I'm going to put them in the system and see how they do. And I've got a bunch that came from seeds, so if this one doesn't make it, it's okay. I'm going to baby some of the other ones, but I'm hoping that this one takes right here. It's got a nice little overstory from the ice cream bean, and we'll see how it does. So that's really the grocery row garden system here. This year, the objective for me is going to be to plant this 3 times more dense. Like I put these bananas in here, I'm gonna put 2 more dwarf bananas up in the front row. I'm gonna grow much more of those nitrogen fixing trees. I'm gonna use moringa not only as an edible, but as a chop and drop. I've got sugar cane that I grew last year and I snipped it all up and I took the little pieces, rooted those in water, and I've spread them all along this row as well. So I'll grow sugar cane obviously for the sugar, but also for the chop and drop. And other than that, I may even introduce some biomass species in here like the Mexican sunflower. My objective for this system is to plant it way more dense. I want that overstory over all of my fruit trees. I want biomass species growing all up and down here. And then of course I want to encourage those target species like the Pickering mango to really take off this year. So I hope to have some good updates. Right now it's mid-February, so kind of like late winter, almost early spring. But I'm hoping in the next month or maybe 2 months, I'm gonna give you an update video, and I'm hoping that these rows go from you seeing the soil to lush green, dense foliage that can be used for food and for chop and drop. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.